2016 AD. The city of Tokyo had been a bustling metropolis for centuries, the center of imperial power since the emperor took Kamakura, and with it, his power back from the shogun. It quickly outgrew Kyoto and all the other cities on the archipelago. Today, the city was filled to the brim with towering spires that covered the skyline. Cars drove across the many roads that coursed between the buildings, as well as those that lay on the ground level. On the side of the many overpasses is that high-rise building, the corridors of each apartment visible, as well as stairs on each side. For the fourth floor, there was a certain man. The room was simple, filled with a bed that sat near a window. And a bed. Little else. On said bed was a youth with dark skin, his black hair spiky and wild. He looked to be of an average height, but normality stopped there. He was bulky, a mountain of muscle, as one might say. He was youthful, looking to be somewhere around 15 to 16. The boy was silent, unmoving, but he eventually began to stir. In a moment, his eyes widened as he jolted awake. He sat up, and some moments after, his expression changed to a more neutral one. That same dream, and yet again, that number. No matter how I look at it, it doesn't make sense. Artias looked around his room for a bit, before he swung his legs over the side of the bed, standing up and stretching. Well, no use in laying here. Artaius walked toward his bedroom door, opening it and stepping out into the rest of the apartment. Like his room, mostly empty, save for a couch that faced the balcony, that allowed him to see the towering buildings in the distance. This was Tokyo's Shima Ward. Artaius' thoughts did not fall on the city in front of him, however, rather what he'd just seen. The fact that it's been that much time since that day. The AR has been gone for years now, and yet that memory won't stop playing in my head. What time is it? He went back into his room, grasping a thin metal slab off of his covers. He grasped it, unplugging the cord attached. As he tapped aside, it switched on, as a holographic display was projected, orange in color. His focus fell on the clock. He tapped aside once more, turning it off. I'll be late if I don't leave now. Not an issue for me. As Artaius placed his device down, he turned to his closet, sliding the doors open. Donning a black blazer that had no tie, seeming to be meant to be buttoned down, and pants of the same color onto the bed. Slipping the slacks on and then the blazer, he buttoned it up. Then, Artaius walked toward the desk, grabbing his bag and slinging it over his shoulder, exiting the room and entering a small area that served as a kitchen, grabbing his keys on the counter, unlocking and opening the door, closing and locking it behind him. Soon, walking down the flights of stairs, and stopping as he reached the sidewalk. He glanced around the city. As he walked once more, before he reached the side of the elevated road, which had thankfully been boarded off by concrete barriers. He looked down upon the ground levels of his building and the road that lied in front. Beginning his walk once more, many others around the same age joined him, though many of them wore different uniforms. Assembly began apart as he came by, attempting to keep their distance. The youth ignored this until he noted the approach of one wearing the same uniform from behind him, with wild dark green locks touching his shoulders in the back, but just reaching his ears in the front. Artaius stopped walking, looking back at him. Artaius! He turned to face him. Now, Yude. It's good to see you. Yude Sasuke, one of Artaius' oldest friends. The male stopped as he got within a few feet. Artaius turned once more as he resumed his walk, though he glanced back at Yude. You said it as if we didn't see each other a few days ago. Yude began to follow him as Artaius' eyes moved to follow him as his friend caught up. I'd expect to hear that from you. What's that supposed to be? All I did was state a fact. As the two continued their walk, they found themselves going further and further down the winding side roads, eventually arriving on the ground level. The two continued their conversation as they continued on their travels. Unbeknownst to them, however, yet another person from their school was coming toward them, from the other direction of the intersection, which was much too small for any cars and clearly not intended for them. The approaching person was a girl, wearing a black sailor uniform along with a blue skirt that stopped just above her knees. She was youthful, the same age as Artaius and Yude. Her shoulder-length brown hair swayed as she walked from the west. Asami Hoshi. The woman saw two people in the distance, but she didn't pay it much mind. This area had a lot of foot traffic, after all, until she caught some of the words. "So, I heard you went to go fight that Hari guy yesterday." As Asami heard the youth's voice, she seemed to perk up. "Hold on, is that?" As Artaius heard his words, he shrugged. Hey, if he was confident enough to post all that online, I at least expected him to be able to take more than one punch. Though she took notice of the two and identified him, she continued walking regardless. Until she bumped into Artaius. She nearly dropped her bag as she stumbled, almost tripping over her own feet and falling onto him, though she would tilt herself backwards and regain her balance, breathing a sigh of relief. All the while, Artaius looked down upon her, his expression a frank one. As he returned his gaze, however, the two now stood there in silence, staring at one another for a moment, before Asami pulled away from him. "Watch where you're going, Corday." "Oh man, here we go again. Watch where I'm going. You were the one who bumped into me." Artaius leaned in, inspecting Asami's expression, as he took a note of some pink dusting her cheeks, though light. It was notable to one who looked close enough. "And why are you blushing? You're the one who decided to stay that close." "What? No, I didn't. What makes you think I'd want to touch somebody like you?" "Your actions. What else?" It was at first a small blush intensified at his words as she turned to him, yelling, "What? Don't get the wrong idea. Maybe if you didn't give the wrong idea, we wouldn't have that problem." She stepped toward them, and a match of bickering began between the two. Yude scratched the back of his head as he watched us from behind. His gaze flew around the street until he took note of yet another girl, wearing the same uniform as Asami, walking toward them. A girl with long black hair, wearing the same uniform Asami did. Though appearing similar in age, one could tell there were some slight differences. Being that she was an inch or two taller than Asami. Her name, Satomi Tanabe, at the age of 17. She walked to Asami's side. She began to glance between them both before she made the decision to intervene, speaking. "You two never change, huh?" As the two heard her, their argument would soon cease as they turned their attention to her. Yude would soon get off the pole he leaned on, walking toward the three. A grin covered his face as he began waving. Tanabe-senpai, it's good to, you two might as well admit it. It's not like we don't already know. You've been pulling this act since middle school, from what I've heard." Though she didn't say it outright, her intent was clear. Yude put his hand down as he dejectedly returned to looking away from them, mumbling, "Ignoring me again? It's like I'm not even here. What did I do to her anyway?" As the woman spoke, Artaius raised an eyebrow, turning his gaze back to Asami, as she did to him, almost as if they were synced. The staring between them continued for a moment, before they looked away from one another. Artaius shoved his hands into his pants pockets, as Asami folded her arms. You think I like her? Some would say age meant wisdom. But for one who's older than me, you seem to know nothing. Who would want to link with like him? He's either late to class or doesn't come at all. And when he does, all he does is loaf around or run off to go fight. This display seemingly did nothing to stave her off, as she continued regardless. See, you two are even so quick to agree with each other. This seemingly did little to change how they appeared to view each other. Protomis' game of matchmaker was less than effective. They stood in silence for a few moments, for Archias turned wordlessly, grabbing his bag off the pavement as he began walking away. Yude, taking notice, scrambled to grab his bag off of the ground, which he had previously leaned on, throwing it over his shoulder before rushing to follow Archias. Hold on a minute. Wait for me. Asami stood there in silence as she watched the two continue to walk toward the school. She did not move for some moments until she facepalmed at her earlier actions. Damn it, Hoshi, you do like him. Who said something like that to someone you like? Asami sighed as she began following the two. Tanabe walked by her side, patting her shoulder as she did so. Well, that didn't look too good, but in the end, we all know you two shut it. As Asami spoke, Tanabe did go silent, but her expression remained unchanged. Her bright smile remained on her face. It was more than clear that she did not take her seriously. But unbeknownst to all of those who walked on the streets, the four, along with the other students who followed along the same route, there stood a man wearing a black coat on the edge of a building just nearby, which was around 20 stories tall. His face was unseen, covered by his hood, and as he observed, his eyes darted around until he took note of the dark-skinned youth and the others who walked by him as they continued their conversation. There you are, the one who somehow managed to escape our grasp. Central Command is real interested in you. Suppose I could see why. I sense quite a bit of Protomis off of you. And those eyes. Those are the eyes of one who has killed before. I must say, you interest me as well. The man smirked, his grin the only thing visible through the darkness of the hood. Elsewhere, Yude and Archias continued their walk. The buildings around them began to gradually get taller as they got closer to the city's downtown areas. Many of the students would steer clear of the two as they continued their journey, while some simply opted to ignore them. They eventually found themselves at the gate of a school building with 3 floors. The crowds of students stood by the gate, speaking in the courtyard, going to their respective classes and whatnot. The plaque on the gate itself was marked to North Shima High School. As they walked through the gates, Yude glanced at his friend once more. Tice, you think Godo's gonna be on you today? Wouldn't surprise me if he was, but in the end, who was he not after? To enter this open school gates, as Yude continued. Guess I can't disagree with you on that. I remember how he went ballistic on Ueno a while back. Wasn't that serious in my opinion. The two turned, entering the hallway, where there sat a line of classrooms. The two would stop at front of an open door, with 1B marked on a sign above it. Taking their seats in the back of the classroom, Yuri sitting at the desk by the window, while Artias sat at the desk next to him. The two were silent as the rest of the seats filled in. One of those entered being Asami, who only gave the two a glance as she took her seat near the center of the classroom. Eventually, the seats were filled save for one or two, as a man entered. One who appeared to be in his 40s. His thick-set glasses reflected on the light from the window. As he looked upon the class, his gaze fell upon a certain student, Artias. Well. Look who decided to show up today, he thought.